Hi, and welcome
to the Faxon blog and podcast. One of the main things that I wanted to talk to you about was just kind of what's going on with the ATF and some of these pushes we've seen over the last few weeks.
Several weeks ago, the Biden transition team met with the ATF. Probably some members of the FBI were there, and they decided, hey, we're going to go after pistol braces. We're going to go after polymer 80s. Anything we can get something quickly done that fits the narrative of Joe Biden's anti-gun rhetoric.
When you see all of this government action and stuff going on with the ATF and all this stuff going on with the transition, but then you counter it with, well, how many people are really voting that way and acting that way if we have such high firearm sales, and it's not just going to the same old people. It's not just people stockpiling or whatever.
These brand new gun owners, they didn't think about anything past the sale. What's happened, they purchased it and they said, oh boy, it's mine, but they didn't think about who's out there ready to take it away.
Tipton Gun Cleaning has everything you need to keep your gun clean and operating properly. They know that a clean gun is a safe gun. With everything from vices to cleaning tools, they have the products you need to take your gun maintenance to the next level. Learn more at tiptonclean.com. It's not clean until it's Tipton Clean. Hi, and welcome to episode 48 of the Faxon blog and podcast, our first episode of season 2. So thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited that you're here. We had a great first year of shows. We're excited to get season 2 up and going, and we have some great guests and topics coming up for it. This week is no exception. We have returning guest Sean Maloney. He's been a defense attorney for over 30 years and has specialized in the firearms space and founded Second Call Defense. But he also has a past history, being on the board for the NRA and Buckeye Firearms and so much more. So a very plugged in guy, very much in the know. So he's going to be on the show this week talking with us about some of the things we've seen just over the last month or so that have been going on in the firearms community, especially pertaining to the ATF with things like pistol braces, everything that went on with polymer 80 and 80%ers, and kind of where we're standing when it comes to gun control in the states right now, and especially as this week signed into law, which we didn't think was going to happen. Governor DeWine here in Ohio signed the Stand Your Ground bill, which takes away the duty to retreat that had previously been law here in Ohio. So Sean's going to give us the insight on all of that. This week, our main segment is brought to you by our friends at Crimson Trace. We are going to be giving away a CMR-206 from their Railmaster series. So if you're looking for a new laser for your handgun, you'll definitely want to enter to win. All you have to do is go to faxonfirearms.com/blog, click on episode 48, and from there you will find all of the ways to enter. So let's take a quick break to hear from our friends of the podcast, and we'll hop into our conversation with Sean from Second Call. Caldwell provides shooting supplies that are engineered to eliminate the variables that make you miss. With everything from targets, range gear, safety gear, and an impressive line of hearing protection, Caldwell has everything you need for the range besides your firearm. Learn more at caldwellshooting.com. Take your shot to the next level with Caldwell. All right, well, welcome to our first full main segment of 2021. And we're doing it big. We brought back Sean Maloney, defense attorney. He's been on the show several times with us from Second Call Defense, and he's going to be giving us a little bit of background. But Sean, lots of hot stuff happening right now for the firearms world, and for us specifically here in Ohio. We're recording this on a Tuesday. Monday, the governor signs into law the Stand Your Ground ruling, which we thought was going to get vetoed. So that's a big deal. But before we dive head first, if you wouldn't mind just giving folks a little bit of background, if they haven't seen a show with you before, and also, what are some of the other things that you're doing in this firearms legal and policy world that may not be directly connected to Second Call Defense?
Okay. I've been a criminal defense attorney for going on 30 years now. In the last 10 years, most of everything I do has been concentrating on firearms, a good guy with a gun, so to speak, dealing with the ATF and the FBI related to legislation. Legislative director of Buckeye Firearms Association. As you stated, we just had a huge victory with Stand Your Ground. And also a past board member of the National Rifle Association, is still heavily involved in gun rights advocacy and let's just hope everybody in Georgia gets out and votes today.
Yeah, absolutely. So this will be publishing on a Friday, so we'll have seen results by then, I think, depending on how everything goes. And but let's go ahead and start with the stuff that's hitting home plate for us, which is that stand your ground law. And so for the people who maybe aren't familiar, kind of with those laws and policies, what is stand your ground, and then what are we phasing out with that, that rule of retreat?
Okay. Essentially, in the state of Ohio right now, for the next 90 days, we have a duty to retreat. So once we determine that we're in fear for our lives or in serious bodily injury, the next decision we have to make before we can do anything else is, can we safely retreat? Can we turn and run? Can we go out the door? Of course, Ohio's Castle Doctrine eliminated that problem for our home or our automobile. But everywhere else in the state of Ohio, we still have a duty to retreat. So what's happened is the legislature has removed that duty to retreat. So as soon as you and I are confronted with death or serious bodily injury or harm, there's no other decision-making process we need to make. We're in fear of death right now, so we can act right now to protect our lives. And essentially, there's no other decision-making process. When it comes to the point in time where the only way we can get out of a situation is by using lethal force, then there's no other decision need to be made.
Yeah. Well, with that in mind, we'll hop into the first two prompts that I sent you before we decided to, since we saw this yesterday, that stand your ground was going to be, signed. One of the main things that I wanted to talk to you about was just kind of what's going on with the ATF and some of these pushes we've seen over the last few weeks, both with pistol braces and with 80%ers, which, obviously made some big wakes, not just in the social community of the firearms, sphere, if you will, but it's also taken quite a bit of, national news, and I think is really opening people's eyes to, how quickly, the ATF or any other body could really just come in and kind of shut down shop. And I think it, especially with the SB side of things, seeing that story arc has been very interesting. So maybe let's start with the whole pistol brace scenario. And I know that this has been off and on hot topic in the firearms community for a while. Could you just kind of give the book jacket blurb version of kind of where we've been in the past with pistol braces and why there's such discrepancy?
Sure. When the AR pistol first came out, and the pistol brace was designed essentially to help a handicapped shooter manage the recoil and be able to shoot a firearm like that, the memorandum was put out and the information was put out by the ATF that they were legal. And then any number of braces have been approved since then. There's a SIG brace, and other private braces, companies that have put braces out. And they've been part of American firearms now ever since they were introduced to the marketplace. And for whatever reason, they've been under attack. And I think they were probably, it all goes back to the bump stock. When all of a sudden they realized that these drastic changes can be made somehow outside of the realm of Congress, and that immediately impact us. I think that's what started the train down those tracks. And several weeks ago, the Biden transition team met with the ATF. Probably some members of the FBI were there, and they decided, hey, we're going to go after pistol braces. We're going to go after polymer 80s. Anything we can get something quickly done that fits the narrative of Joe Biden's anti-gun rhetoric that we're going to do. And I think that's where it first came in. And I have a couple ongoing cases with the ATF, and I'll be up in Columbus picking some things up from them later on this week or early next week. And I had a conversation with a couple agents. And I said, hey, hang in there. I know you guys are taking a lot of crap. And he said, we're going to be taking a lot more. It's out of our hands. And so they indicated to me that there's a lot more coming down the pike. And just because they retracted their letter on the pistol brace doesn't mean that's going away. I think probably they're going to add more to it, and something else is going to happen. And hold on too. This isn't going to stop at a bump stock. Trigger activators, Franklin triggers, Accu triggers, the triggers are going to be attacked next. Anything that increases rate of fire is going to be on the chopping block. And so we're going to have to try to do everything we possibly can to prevent that, which makes Tuesday's Senate race in Georgia that much more important.
We'll be right back with more of the Faxon Blog and Podcast right after this. Since 1994, Crimson Trace has defined and built the laser sighting category through design, innovation, and performance. With an obsession to create best-in-class electro-optics, Crimson Trace is proud to further enhance the experiences of shooters, hunters, and rugged outdoor enthusiasts. Learn more at crimsontrace.com. Here to elevate confidence in moments that matter. You know, something that I think is uniquely interesting, and I'll be the first to admit that, you know, until I started working here, I didn't really know how ambiguous some of the things were between what makes an AR pistol a pistol, what makes an AR rifle a rifle. You know, why is there such concern between, you know, stock and brace, and why does it all seem to, you know, it seems just nickel and dimed and pieced together. It's like, well, if you have this barrel length, if it's too short, you put a stock on it. Well, now that's a short barrel rifle, and you need extra things for that. You need extra, you know, that's you know, so those are things that I think that some folks that are maybe even, you know, fully into the firearms community, but maybe they're just not AR people, you know, don't really know how granular, you know, that gets down. I mean, for a while, wasn't there a thing where it was like, yeah, you could have a brace, but you can't shoulder it. You know, you can't put it up on your shoulder. And so it's like, well, how do you even enforce that? You know, how does that even work? You know, so I think the granularity of all this is eye-opening to some folks. I personally was talking to some family members over the holiday, and they had saw what had come down, and they were asking, you know, about what we were doing with it. And as you probably saw, we did a thing where we sold a bunch of SBA3 braces with donations going back to SB. And they were like, you know, what is that? Like, what is that all about? And I was like, well, like, you see this picture of a rifle? Like, so this could have this type of back, and this could have this type of back, but this one can't have that one. And it becomes this whole thing. And a lot of people, you know, that I've talked to that aren't even, you know, I would say are probably neutral grounders when it comes to gun laws, are just like, well, that's weird. Like, why would they draw the line there? You know, that's where I think it's just so ambiguous.
Well, and it's all the fight that we've been having since NFA came out, since they decided to regulate in the way they regulated, you know, in the 70s and 80s. And that's the fight we've had. And, you know, probably in the pistol brace was a victory. And more importantly, name a problem or name a tragedy that has occurred because of the presence of a pistol brace.
Right.
You know, you can't do that. But again, it's all gun control to a certain extent. And I've always told people, they don't have to actually take your guns to have gun control. It's another piece of paper. It's another regulation. It's a shorter brace. It's another tax fee. Any little thing to make it harder for you or I, or for Faxon Firearms to conduct its business, that's gun control. And that's why we all have to be aware in the gun community of what's going on, because, you know, just because they're not coming after ours right now doesn't mean they're on the way. And I think certainly it's on the way. There's a lot of things going on. Like I said, the transition team has already met, which in my mind is crazy, but it just goes to tell you that he ran on an anti-gun platform, the most anti-gun platform ever, and whoever's not going to give up. The Biden team isn't going to give up on it, and if they get total control of Congress, Katie barred the door.
Right,
we're going to take a huge step backward.
Mm-hmm. Well, then let's move it into this second piece of kind of shaking news. And I mean, I mentioned it as 80%ers, but obviously the ATF was specifically going at polymer 80 on their build kits for handguns. And, you know, for those who don't know, could you just explain to folks what those kits really are? I mean, I know there was like a whole 60 Minutes thing last year, ghost guns and all this kind of stuff, but what, at least in the eyes of the law right now, is considered, you know, a buildable, handgun, that a kit that somebody could buy, and why is it a different transaction than a regular full firearm?
Well, essentially, when you're looking at an 80% kit and an 80% build kit, they're just at their 80%. They're really not 100% a firearm yet. There's some modifications that needs to be made to the blanks, to the receivers, to the slides, to the frames, and then there's parts that need to be assembled. And so that's the difference between buying a firearm out of the box ready to go, or one that you can just essentially put together, and something that needs still some build done, some modifications done, some work done on them. And I think truly, the fact, for whatever reason, the fact that they don't have a serial number on that gun, they don't know it's your gun, it's a quote unquote ghost gun, that's what bothers them the most. But, it really shouldn't, again, but a ghost gun sounds really scary. Right. And so it's just a reason for them to go after. But again, it's just another piece that they can easily go after. Now, I was stunned when they showed up at the factory and started seizing stuff. And, the rumors have it that they were going to end users and they see some stuff there also. So when the truth comes out on this is going to be very interesting. Well, think about them coming into Faxon Firearms for something that you've been doing legally for years and years and years. And that's what should concern all of us, because those are our rights, our civil rights from the beginning. And it affects our Second Amendment rights as well as any number of other civil rights that we have. And so really the only big difference is you have a gun that it still partially needs to be manufactured, so to speak, and so it can become that firearm. And that's what they're going after. Again, I think whatever they can do immediately to make the change is what they're doing. And and the legality of what happened with bump stocks hasn't been litigated. There's still federal cases out there. I still I'm not clear in my mind how legally they could ban something that's legal without congressional intent. So we'll find out what's going to happen, but those cases are still going, but they're moving forward. And think of any number of other things. I guess we could get on the ATF's webpage and just look at all these other letters and all these other proposals that they have out there. And they're going to be impacted, and they're going to come after all of them. Like I said, no doubt in my mind, they're going to come after triggers. Anything they can come after, they're going to. And this is the first shot across the bow. And for us gun owners, us sportsmen, or us freedom lovers, or people that at least believe in the Constitution, we're under attack clearly. And they didn't waste any time. They didn't wait until anybody was inaugurated. They already met with them, and they gave them marching orders. And as my friends in the ATF said, there's a lot more coming down the road. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, when we're having these conversations, I mean, we've gone through the holiday season already, but, I know that you had talked, back around the election, like, your mom had been hunkering down watching CNN and everything before the election. And, there was people just like, waiting for that across the table type talk about politics or gun control or whatever. When we're talking to people about this that maybe aren't in tune to the firearms community or all the working pieces that go into it, when it comes to these 80% kits, and obviously since Polymer 80 was, the ones that got, knocked in on by the ATF, the thing that I don't think all people realize is, on most handguns, the serialized asset is the frame. It's the bottom part. If you were to buy one of our FX19 pistols, right up underneath the nose on the frame, right outside the trigger guard, we have our serial number. M&P has it up here, and they all have it on the frame for the most part. With these 80% builds, I think one of the arguments that's being posted by the moderates or the people who are, full on for gun control is that this isn't a serialized asset, and that in theory, people can buy this without a background check and get all the other parts without a background check. I mean, how do we counter that? How do we counter that conversation? Because the hard part for me is I look at it and go, that seems just like a fun project. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I could, maybe do my own stippling but I'm not like paying the money for a full serialized complete frame that I might mess up putting together or whatever. But I think, some people are concerned just with the fact that like, hey, this piece that is a large component of the firearm doesn't require a background check because it's not serialized. I mean, how do we stand I guess, how do we counter that argument?
Well, definitions of firearms came from somewhere. Somebody along the line made a determination of what's legal and what's not. You got to remember, we're dealing with life after the crazy time, after the NFA Act, after things had to be serialized. I bought my first firearm when I was 9 years old at Western Auto. I bought a 22 by myself with my lawnmower money and in the 70s. And so that's how things have changed along the time. We brought our bows, we brought our rifles from my high school, and we shot underneath the stage where there was a range. So things have changed over time. And the anti-gun folks or part of American history for time after time after time hasn't ended. They every morning they get out of bed and try to take something else. So this is their constant evolution of what they're trying to do. So first we have to go back to the way things were, and just all of a sudden we didn't decide, hey, we're going to take these parts of firearms that aren't complete yet, even though eventually they'll be able to fire. We're going to sell them right now because they don't have to have any serial numbers. That's not the way it happened. It happened with things that we were legally able to do for decades and decades, and then all of a sudden they defined what is a serialized part? When does it have to be serialized? When do you have to have a background check on it? And then at that point in time, they put rules in place. And so they just keep changing the rules as we go down the road, so to speak. Yeah.
And I think, the thing to remember as technology increases, and this is one of these hypotheticals that I get into that makes my head spin, but I think it's a good thought. Like, at what point do you stop? Because in general, there are people now who could buy really great 3D printers and be 3D printing their own lowers. So is it going to be like fireworks were in Ohio for a while, where you could buy them here, but you had to sign a thing that said, oh, I'm going to set these off in Indiana or whatever, because, what's stopping people, from saying like, hey, you know what? We know you're a gun owner, so now you have to sign something when you buy a 3D printer because we think you have the capability to make something. It's just, when does the scope creep and the reach creep stop? And I think this is an indicator of it, because, I was talking to my father-in-law several months ago, and he was talking about how back in the day he had bought like one of those black powder pistol kits, in which, as far as I know, muzzle loaders, black powder types of, you could still do them. It's like, well, we could still do these things, but is it, we're saying no to this because it's semi-automatic, or because it looks scarier to you, or because it's new? These 80, polymer 80 hasn't been around for 100 years, so I think it's the newness. And as technology advances and people are more capable to do these things, that's where you really start wondering, because as far as I know, there's no law that says you can't build your own firearm in your own home.
No, and I think one of the biggest things we have to think of is the progressives are good at this. They keep repeating something over and over and over again. So we're having this conversation because suddenly the firearm is the problem. It's the evil firearm. It's not the person that builds the firearm, buys the firearm, picks the firearm up, and decides to commit a crime, decides to break any number of laws. And so we're having this conversation because, decades ago, the progressives and anti-gun people started saying guns are bad, guns are bad, guns are bad. And then for me to say, wait a minute, it's not the firearm, it's the individual. Well, and that's really what it is. But they take us down that road and they start this conversation that really is not related to anything. The guns don't jump off a shelf. Guns don't fall downstairs and start shooting people. Guns don't indiscriminately murder. It's the person behind that gun. And we as gun owners and we as people in the business, sometimes we tend to forget, and all of a sudden we enter into the realm that they created for us. And so we got to remember that, wait a minute, first off, it's not the gun. What is the purpose of you trying to do this? What's the purpose of you limiting my ability to purchase an 80% and create a firearm? What's your purpose? Yeah. Well, the purpose is to take my ability away to own a gun.
We'll be right back with more of the Faxon Blog and Podcast right after this. Secure peace of mind with lockdown, state-of-the-art technology. From security cameras to vaults and much more, they help you keep your home and valuables safe. Lockdown Products monitors and provides constant connectivity for your high-value, high-consequence items. Learn more at lockdown.com. It's not secure unless it's on lockdown.
Well, and you know what I think is interesting, obviously you were on with us in the fall as we were leading up to the election for a couple of episodes, and we were looking at the official, platform and campaign pages for Biden Harris when it came to gun control, which was, like you said, it was huge. It was very sweeping. It got down to the granularity of if they had it their way, and I'm paraphrasing, it would be anything semi-automatic, would be taken off the market, which is, again, some people still don't understand that semi-automatic is, one bullet per pull of the trigger. It's not these, 3-round bursts that people are saying. It's not fully automatic. It's none of that stuff. I said, in theory, any, mag-fed shotgun, you would be out of luck. You're 22, like you were talking about. Right. If it had any capacity to hold more than one round, you would be out of luck unless it was a bolt gun or a pump, and then who knows how long it would take if semi-autos get banned to just continually go down that road of, okay, well, now we're going to take away bolt actions or pump actions or something like that. But the dichotomy that I see is the ATF doing these things, some of the gun control measures that are already starting to surface during the transition. But then when we go back and we look at the numbers for this past year, Smith & Wesson had their greatest year ever. I think I saw the Truth About Guns posted a graph today. It was like 21 million, guns were sold, in the U.S. this year. And when we had Mark Oliva on from the NSSF a few weeks ago, he was saying that their numbers are actually indicating that we thought it was like 4 to 5 million new gun owners, that they're actually estimating 7.5 million new gun owners. And to me, that is a hard thing to track when you see all of this government action and stuff going on with the ATF and all this stuff going on with the transition. But then you counter it with, well, how many people are really voting that way and acting that way if we have such high firearm sales, and it's not just going to the same old people, it's not just people stockpiling or whatever. It's, an estimated 7.5 million new gun owners, with a large majority of those being minority people groups and females, which, counters, the gun stereotype. How do you handle that dichotomy? What do you see working in that?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that go into that. If you truly believe that Joe Biden got the numbers that he got, then obviously you're also going to realize that these brand new gun owners, they didn't think about anything past the sale. They didn't think about their ability to buy a 17-round magazine or a 22-round magazine. They didn't think about their ability to be able to go out and buy an ARAC. They didn't think about their ability to use it. What's happened, they purchased it and they said, oh boy, it's mine, but they didn't think about who's out there ready to take it away. And this election, more than anything else, you have Buttigieg, the gun czar. He wants every AR-15 out there, and they will attempt to do this, whether it's a forced gun buyback or whether it's seizures or some way they're going to get around to doing that. But that's going to happen. So sure, there's a great influx of brand new gun owners, and that was good for us, except for the fact is they thought that their patriotism ended at the gun counter. They forgot that they had to vote their rights and protect their rights. Because they're so new to this, they didn't realize something that they can legally purchase now is going to be under attack every day that they own this thing. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that happened to everybody. And when you think about the fact that Biden didn't hide the fact that he wants the guns. Biden didn't hide the fact that he wants gun control. Nobody did it anymore on the progressive side. They're not afraid of that. And now they won on that platform is what they can say. The people gave us their marching orders.
Right.
So this is just the beginning.
I think that's probably one of the most telling things is just like we did back when Sheriff Jones was on and when you were on with me and Dan Zimmerman, that we looked at that platform page and it was so broad. It was so broad. And I know that people in the industry, including ourselves, were like, okay, what's the pivot? Bob Faxon was on the show with us when we talked to Mark Oliva, and he was talking about how in the past, the firearms industry has been able to be agile. That with past, bans or ATF rulings or whatever it may be, that we're able to take our ingenuity, take our processes, our engineers, and make something that we could still give the American people what they deserve and what they have a right to own without making them felons, and that was something that I think came up in the, the response letter, to the ATF with the whole pistol brace situation. It was like, listen, overnight, you're going to turn millions of people into felons, because they already own these and they bought these when they were legal. And so it goes in. I mean, you could take that back to like auto sears and all the sorts of things that have, overnight like that become no longer, available, or they're another serialized item. It changes so quickly. And, I'm wondering, what do you think, at least from the rumblings you're hearing, what do you think the next one is? I mean, do you think they're going to go back after the braces? Do you think they're going to hit heavier on the 80%ers, or is it going to be a more broad sweeping thing?
Well, I don't think they're done with the braces. I think that seems to be an easy target for them, so to speak, based on what they've done in the past. So I think for whatever reason, they floated the braces out there, but they're certainly not done with those. Maybe they're going to add some more to those, but I think this is just the beginning. They're going to take the low-hanging fruit. And if they can walk into the ATF office, the transition team, and then later on the Biden team when after the inauguration, and say, hey, we want you to do this, this, and this, and the ATF says, okay, well, they've just made some sweeping changes with firearms in the United States with little or no fanfare. They've just done it with a stroke of the pen. And I think, like I said, any trigger activators are going to be involved. Anything's going to be involved. Can you imagine if your AK pistol now is going to be an NFA item, and now everybody's got to go out and go through the process of getting their tax stamp and then paying that money? Again, gun control is anything that makes it harder for us to live with. And given the fact that you had Team Biden saying, and they still talk about seizing all the AR-15s, all the ARACs, all of the semi-automatic firearms, and so it's not going to end there. I think this is just the beginning, and this is just an easy way. But think about how serious they are about this. They're hitting the ground running, which tells me they got a group of people or part of a team out there whose sole job is to interfere and take away your rights and my rights. They're there to interfere with our constitutional rights. They have a team in place, ready to go, and Katie barred the door. They're on their way doing it right now. So
I think that's the thing that even outside of firearms, I don't think I've ever seen anything in a presidential transition quite like this. Yes. I'm not a political scientist or anything like that, but I cannot remember for the life of me, transition teams and office of the elect and everything being such a public and pushed thing. And because, like you said, I mean, the ATF is going after these folks like SB, like Polymer 80, and it's not like they were given orders by the current president, by the sitting president.
I know, by a transition team.
Yeah, it was just like, wow, like that's new. Never seen anything quite like that before. That's where I think many of the ruffled feathers are coming from as well. I think it's very interesting. It's going to be crazy to see how these next few months and years play out. I mean, as you know, there's just all kinds of rumblings across the industry as everybody's had record high sales and everything this year, and inventory issues because of such a surge, and it was just one thing after another, with the pandemic and then all the social unrest, and then you had the election, and everything just seems to be, dragging on, and you try to forecast just as any business would. And it's pretty pretty tough to do so, not just for us, but also for, distributors and,
Right.
other businesses. So this will be a very telling year, I think, for how agile the firearms industry could be. Sean, before we sign off today, could you just remind folks about what you do at Second Call and where people can find more info about it?
If you go to www.secondcalldefense.org, you can get all the information related to protecting yourself and your family, and then the aftermath of using your firearm in self-defense. We created Second Call Defense so that at the point in time you're forced to use your firearm in self-defense, you have immediate backing and a legal team on your side immediately, because although it may seem clear in your mind, you never know what jurisdiction you're going to be in or where things are going to happen. So we want to make sure that the lawful, good person with a gun has the ability to have immediate legal defense team on their side from the beginning. And also we provide a tremendous amount of educational materials from the beginning. So you know kind of what you're getting yourself into if you're forced into a lethal force situation. So again, go to www.secondcalldefense.org, get all the information necessary, and you'll find my phone number on there. But of course, I always give out my cell phone, 513-484-0142, if anybody ever has any questions or concerns.
Excellent. Well, we will put all of that information in the show notes this week, so make sure you visit episode 48 on the Faxon Firearms blog and podcast pages. And we'll also link some of the previous shows that Sean's been on with us, including his first show where we went more in depth about what Second Call does and is all about. So as always, Sean, thank you so much for joining us.
And thanks for taking the fight, because it's all of ours right now.
Thank you so much.
We'll be right back with more of the Faxon Blog and Podcast right after this. Wheeler Tools makes high-quality gunsmithing tools for your bench. With everything from scope mounting to sight adjustment, they have you covered. No matter what the project, Wheeler Tools is engineered to fit the job. Learn more at wheelertools.com.
Thanks for tuning in. We're so excited you joined us this week. We hope you enjoyed this show and you found it informational. Don't forget to go to the show notes this week. We're going to have links to some of Sean's previous episodes and also resources for how you could get in touch with Second Call. Also, there will be your graphic to click to enter to win the Crimson Trace CMR-206, and we will announce that winner next week. So make sure you get your daily entries in as soon as you can. As always, we would love to hear from you. If you have a question, a suggestion for the show, a guest suggestion even, we'd love to hear it. Please email us podcast@faxonfirearms.com. And as always, we would love for you to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform. So obviously we're on Facebook Watch and YouTube and so on, but also on your favorite audio carriers as well: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. You could find a link to all of those networks on any one of our show pages at faxonfirearms.com/blog. So thank you once again for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
We want to extend our deepest gratitude to military, police, first responders, and more by saying thank you with special pricing and discounts on all Faxon products. Here's how you get started. First, you'll head on over to our website, faxonfirearms.com. From there, you'll want to click Support and Guardian Purchase Program in the drop-down. Then you'll see the instructions on how to get started, so let's just walk through those. First, you'll want to register for an account on our website. If you've already bought something from us on our website before, then this part's already taken care of. Second, you'll want to send a copy of your credentials or some reasonable verification of affiliation to customer service at faxonfirearms.com. We get a lot of emails where people are like, hey, will this count? Will this ID count? Will this VA card count? Chances are, yes, a lot of them will count, but make sure you attach an image or a copy of that verification to the email before you even ask customer service. That way they can expedite the process for you. As soon as the account has been created or updated, we will send you an email letting you know that you're ready to go. The discount will be available anytime online when you go to your shopping cart. If you have any more questions, please email customer service at faxonfirearms.com.